Building in Minecraft is so fun because there are no rules, but when I first started playing, my worlds felt a little flat. It didn't have any personality. So, my fellow builders, here are a few details you can add to your survival world to make it come alive. Paths are truly what can make your build go from a random collection of buildings to something a little less random. But simply using generic path blocks can make it look a little dull, so here are 3 ways to add a little personality. First up, flower path. Alright, this is one of my favorites, and you might recognize this design as I used it in my survival series. But here are the blocks. The biggest mistake I made when I first started making paths in my world was I made it in a straight line like this. Instead, try to curve it a little bit. Actual paths in the real world have an actual curve to them, and they never go in a straight line, but just doing that can make a huge difference. The goal of these block palettes and the placement of everything is just to make it look worn and natural, like it sort of just naturally occurred and like you didn't build it, it just kind of happened. I think by placing everything randomly, that's how you achieve that. Don't think too much about it. I like to add a bit of a border around it with leaves and fences, just anything that makes it come alive a bit. Wildflowers, just toss those bad boys everywhere, cover it. I don't want to hear anything about this being unrealistic or too much. It's cute, okay? I like to add a bit of color, so some lilacs. Also because I think yellow and purple go so well together, so we are throwing some of those in there. Final touches, some allium. I think this specific path looks really cute in a fantasy type world or maybe cottagecore, just something cute and whimsical. Next up is the overgrown path, and here are the blocks that I use for that. If you want your survival world to feel alive, you need to sprinkle in some personality in there. It doesn't need to be your personality, but there needs to be something alive, some soul in your builds. And whether that's doing something whimsical or fantasy or industrial or dystopian, whatever it may be, as long as it feels like it has a personality and a soul, it's gonna make your world feel much more alive. So what I like to do here also, just for a little bit of added texture to the ground, is exchange some of these blocks for actual leaves. It makes it look really cool and overgrown, and it ties in really well with the moss as well, so don't be shy. Another nice thing to do is just add a bunch of greenery, so I'm going in with lots of bushes and ferns, anything to make this come alive a little bit more, make it look like it's been in nature for a long time. This path is giving me overgrown dystopian city vibes for some reason, so if that's your vibe, maybe you can do something cool with this. And last but not least is the forest trail. And here are the blocks. I want this to look straight out of a forest, like a path that was created by humans or animals. This would be super fitting in a woodsy type of build. Maybe if you're doing a farm, it could work too. And now for the decorations, I actually like to use campfires for this because it makes it look like logs or sticks has fallen down. I can totally see this path if you have a bit more of a spread out base. Maybe you have a trail through the forest to get to your storage room or your village where you're trading. This would be perfect. This looks super cozy. Imagine this in a forest. Perfect vibes. Decorations can be what makes or breaks your builds, and especially flowers is something that I used to just put down a pot and put a flower in it and call it a day, but there are so many other ways of doing it. So let me show you some. This is a bit of a hanging flower design. Super cute to have outside or inside depending on the size of your build. I like to go around the bottom with signs because it gives it a rounded look that you don't really get otherwise, and I kind of like that. It took me a long time of playing Minecraft to even understand just how creative you can be and how many blocks there is to use. I think I played for years without even knowing there was something called a flower pot. And then we're gonna hang the flowers from here. You just put chains and then the flower pots, and then you choose your flowers. And I'm going with a cherry sapling, a torch flower, and a flowering azalea because that's just so freaking cute. Next up, this one is so simple if you just want a bit of a mini tree design. that doesn't take up too much space, maybe like inside your house. And then we put spruce fence above and flowering azalea leaves, like that. Another way to do a little mini tree is by using a big pot, put a mini flower pot in, dead bush, and then put your leaf on. And that makes it look like little branches holding it up, which is also super cute. So that's 3 ways to do some decorations that isn't just, you know, putting down a pot and a flower. I used to spam torches all around my base, but we all know that looks super ugly, so here are a few ideas to light up your base outside. One of my favorite block combinations is oxidized copper and warped wood, so I thought using that as a lantern design would bring a lot of nice color into the world. I like to use a combination of oxidized copper rods and chains to give the pole a nice shape. And just for some variation, I like to put the lanterns at different heights. It just gives it a nice look. On to the next design. This one is a bit more of a classic street light. I used the same design for the pole, sort of, with the copper rods and the chains. But this time I didn't use the oxidized versions because I wanted this sort of reddish color. And I used a copper bulb for this one instead of a lantern. This one is also pretty simple because you can use any type of wood for this. I would say this is one of the more conventional designs because it doesn't use any blocks that are that hard to come by or difficult material. You can literally just use any type of wood. I used dark oak for this one because I feel like it looks kind of rustic. So that's the vibe I was going for, but you can totally use anything. And what I like about the hanging signs is you can actually place them at any angle. You can be a bit creative here, and it will look different. So you can customize it a bit. Next up, I attempted a bit of a mystical, fairy, fantasy vibe. So we're using cherry and crimson wood here. And again, I'm using copper and chains, but this time it's the waxed weathered copper because I feel like it has this pink look. It goes pretty well with the cherry. There are certainly areas where this can improve, but it's an idea. I also decided to use soul lanterns because I feel like that's much more mystical than the normal lanterns. Those are some different ideas for lanterns and lighting. I try to make them in different styles. Hopefully you can find something that fits your world. When I used to do storage rooms, I would just spam chests like this, and while it might be effective, it's certainly not good looking. So here are just a few ways to do it a little bit cuter. Obviously it is a storage room, so yes, we're gonna need chests, but instead of just spamming them next to each other, you can separate them with some barrels, for example, just to break up the color. I like to make sure I have all the essentials, like furnaces, a stone cutter in case you need it, and of course a crafting table. And I usually put it in the floor like this because you don't really need to see the whole block to use it. And to be honest, it's kind of ugly. Okay, for this one we're gonna go from the corner instead. So we're starting with some barrels, continuing with chests, and then leaving some space on the sides for other things. Now, I know this might not seem like the most effective, but you can still access the barrels like this. And again, just sprinkle in some essentials. Stone cutter, shelves, lanterns, obviously some furnaces. And if you have any space, why not put a few decorations in there as well? Obviously, this might not be everybody's cup of tea. Some people just want to maximize space with chests, and I completely respect that. But I like to make it a little bit more lived in and cute. So these are just some ideas if you like this in. If you want your world to look and feel more alive, you might want to steer clear of these vanilla village looking farms. And to be fair, this is more than I used to do when I first started playing. I would just find the nearest source of water and just plant seeds right next to it. But there are better ways to do it. I'll show you one of my favorite tips when it comes to farms. I like to make a border that's not completely symmetrical because it looks more natural. Something that I think makes a farm look really good is when it looks like it's part of the nature. So work with the terrain generation. Don't be scared of having it at different levels like this. It adds a lot more depth and it looks really good from a distance. Okay, now if you really want to make it pop, replace some of the wheat with flower bushes. They're 1 block taller, so you'll see them from a distance. I personally like to use rose bushes with wheat, and this color combo is to die for. And you can do this with the other crops as well. Those were some of my current favorite details to add to a survival world to make it come alive. If you were inspired by these, or maybe you have some ideas for other builds, leave a comment, I'd love to hear. Keep building, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!